Welcome everyone to our event. Seeing opportunity in devastation, stories to inspire with our guru mentor, Ed Hatton. And it's always wonderful to host these sessions with you, Ed, and looking forward to what we are going to be discussing today. Um, Basically, you're welcome to access the playback on this platform, or you could go to the YouTube channel called Griffin Enterprise Development. And by the way, Griffin is spelled Gryphon, and you will see the last week it spoke to us about maintaining high touch relationships, and obviously supported with latest technology, but not to make latest technology the main contact point for customers. So yeah, I'm not going to say anything else because I know Ed is going to summarize for us and introduce the new topic. And Ed, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Shark. Yeah, we also touched last week on what not to do, how not to make yourself distant from your customers, and um, and I've noticed of late there's an over reliance on AI, and AI in many cases is not mature enough yet to actually take up that load. And I had a very good example where I was looking for some information. It was quite obscure. I had to find a facility on a website, and it was a very obscure facility. They'd moved their website around, so this facility wasn't easily findable. So I went on and contacted them, and I got one of these chatbots on the line. And I have to say, that was artificial intelligence, then it was very stupid artificial intelligence. And I think there is a
Artificially
bit of
intelligent.
I think there is quite a bit of artificial stupidity around at the moment that people put in instead of customer service because
Mm.
it's cheap. It's just automatic. The customer's supposed to help themselves. But AI is only as good as the person who programs it. The threads that it develops and the nuances that it can understand and the keywords that it will understand. And in this case, it picked up one keyword and it kept going back to tell me something I didn't want to know. And however I phrased my question, it ended up at the same place. And frankly, I got very irritated with that. And so eventually I phoned the call center, and a very lovely and very helpful person um, told me, and they didn't know that this change had been made, so they had to work through it themselves. But we got to where we wanted as well, because there was a person who could understand the nuances. So be careful. Some of the automated the chatbots can be very, very useful, but uh, don't ask them at this stage of the game to answer extraordinarily difficult problems where there are fuzzy questions which you may not have thought of before. So, having said that, we said at the end of last week that we talk about a bit about the price and the cost in terms of relationships. And I was very interested in a post a little while ago by someone who said, "What do you get when you cut your prices?" And the best answer that was given was disloyal customers. And that shook me for a little while because everyone cuts their prices. Everyone discounts, or almost everyone. Um, we'll give away money to get business, especially when times are tough. And their response was, the lower your price, the more likely you are to attract the sort of customers that you don't want, because they will leave you at a moment's notice when they can get it for 50 cents cheaper somewhere else. And that's going to happen. You don't want to be the person who is the lowest priced in any particular range. Because quite often the definition of the lowest price that is available for a particular commodity is the price given by the person who is about to go out of business in order to dump some inventory and gain some cash in return for uh, an inventory problem. And that's not really the position you want to place yourself as a business person. So be careful about price. If you go too low, you can easily end up in a situation where you are attracting the wrong kind of customers, the customers that you can't form a relationship with, the kind of customers whose only relationship with you is with the price that you're now offering. If you try and increase that price, or if another offer comes along, they will go like crazy. So be careful of of doing too much on the pricing aspect or too frequently on the pricing aspect, making it your target business. There are businesses who thrive on the basis of having the lowest price and a very high volume and perhaps quite a high churn. And that's their business model. And if that's your business model and you make money off it, I have no gripe about that. It's just not the sort of business that I would like to be involved in. I like to have lifetime relationships with customers, to people where I can talk to them 10 years later and they say, ah, this was such a great experience that we had together. So let's just look at the cost then of doing, of relationships. Now, a company called 10xe, which is a high growth consulting company, part of the Edge Group. I'm indebted to them for a concept that they put out where they said that the normal sales funnel should in fact be a hourglass shape, not simply the typical large at the top, small at the bottom sales function, where you get sales leads coming in the top and conversions coming out, sales coming out the bottom. And it would have the various bands of looking and interested in quotations and acceptance of quotations and buying. Their funnel was then complemented by an upside down funnel on the other side. And their funnel ended not with buy, but with try, because their concept was that people who come to you for the first time come to you to sample your product. They are not necessarily long-term customers, and they don't think themselves as customers as yet. They want to see what it's like to deal with you, and they're prepared to pay some money to do that. So then the next step in that cycle is for them to buy. In other words, to now commit to you and start buying routinely. And then it develops further down the line into upselling and cross-selling and getting referrals and getting and retention, ensuring the customer stays there. Now, if you have a look at all of those, and I mentioned this model because I quite like the model, but the concept has been around for many, many years. Um, if you look at all of those aspects, the opportunity that you have to sell to existing customers with whom you have a relationship, it's enormous. There's the opportunity to upsell, to increase the number of uh, volume of sales with that business by knocking out competitors who are supplying similar products and services to that business. There's the opportunity of cross selling, of selling other of your products into your existing customers, products that they could be using but are not now using for unknown reasons. And usually they're not now using them because they didn't know about them. And if you try to say, yeah, we told you about them, they're on our website and it's in our brochure and we sent you an email, they are liable, as in the story last week, to roll their eyes and say, try harder. You need to go and tell them directly. You need to offer them. You need to offer trials. There's an exercise which I've done many, many times where you put down a matrix over, say, a 6 month period, and you put your product groupings across the top. So for me, it would be public speaking, mentoring, training, facilitating, for instance. Those are my product, broad speaking, the product groups. And then down the side, you list your customers. And then you put the value that that the customer has spent with you in each of those areas in the past, say, 6 months or a year or whatever is convenient in your business. Now, if you do that exercise, almost inevitably, your little matrix is going to be mainly blank spaces because most people are only buying one of your products, or maybe two or three, or only one range and not the others. And I know that's true of what I do. There's a few of my customers who bought three or four of them, but I don't think anyone has, or not too many of them, have bought them all. So there are opportunities there for you to go and mine those customers and find out where they are procuring the other services that you offer or whether they don't need them. Now, if you have a small customer base like I do, or many of the coaches and mentors around, um, you can go and talk individually on a one on one basis and say, what about this? Have you thought about that? Who are you getting this service from? And so on down the line. And surprisingly, you will get probably quite a large number of sales there. If you're in a more industrial kind of business where you're supplying a range of products like machinery or something similar, or a range of services like accounting and company secretarial and taxation and bookkeeping and a whole lot of other services like that, and you have a lot of blank spaces in that chart, then it's very easy to go along and talk to each individual, either on a one on one basis or on a one to many by means of some kind of a broadcast or by some kind of um, an electronic communication like sending a link to a podcast or sending a link to a YouTube or something like that, there where this sort of concept is explained. Typically, in many types of businesses, if you just start business by a substantial amount of money in a relatively short time, and the cost of doing so, a little bit of administrative work, a little bit of communication work, almost zero cost. So in terms of your cross sell, you have a great opportunity in most businesses to do extensive business through your existing customers. But there's more to cross selling, and that is that you can sell horizontally across members of a group of companies that your customer belongs to, for instance, or members of a society that your customer belongs to, or any kind of thing that binds several people, of which several organizations, of which your customer is one together, because it's very easy to do. You get referability from your customer, go along and say, Joe said I should. I buy like that a lot. I buy on referrals from others. I buy on referrals from people around me, people in similar industries. If Jacques says to me, this is the way to go, I will say, yeah, that's probably right, because I trust him. And if he's experienced good service there, I probably won't look very much further. In fact, many times in those circumstances, you don't actually have a competitor. You don't even, the person doesn't even ask for alternative quote. The recommendation is good enough. So upselling, cross-selling, getting recommendations, and then most of all, retaining, making sure that that customer stays with you for as long as possible, for lifetime if possible. The retention side is something that you have to work at as hard as you work at getting new business. And it's much more profitable for all of these things because the new business guy comes in and he buys, or he tries, he buys one thing at a time and he may then stay or he may go. with your existing customer, they become the center of a whole marketing effort of upselling, cross-selling, selling inside a group, uh, getting recommendations from, and all of the other opportunities that they present, as well as their own growth. And if you can help them grow, your business will grow as well. But retention is vital. And the only way you can retain a customer is by ensuring that you continue to meet their needs. That's the joker in the pack. What are we doing to understand the changing needs of our existing customers? In many cases, sadly, not very much at all. We just get nice and lazy and laid back and know that we're getting lots and lots of money from them. And so they must be happy. Very bad mistake. Lots of customers were very, very happy until they made their last purchase from you before switching to someone who was more focused on what was happening in them now. So you need to work at it. You need to go and find out what their customers are doing. What's happening in their markets? Who do they sell to? And what's happening in that market? What are the issues confronting them? And you can do a lot of this electronically. You can do a lot of this by writing articles and inviting comment from your customers. You can do a lot of it on a one-on-one basis. You can do some of it by, for instance, newsletters. You certainly can get the basis behind this by keeping your eyes on the marketplace. So stop looking at the in-tray and start looking at the blogs and the news and the financial issues of various marketplaces that your customers may be involved in. Because then you'll be able to talk to them on a sensible basis. And if they understand that you've done your homework, they will talk to you. They will give you the answers that you're looking for. So, lots of possibilities there. If you can get it all right, you are going to make a fair amount of money. In fact, there are businesses that have doubled and trebled in size by just doing these steps. The cost of these steps is almost nothing. The cost of acquiring a new customer is very, very high these days because of the level of competition. The cost of taking these steps is relatively low. It's more to do with communication than any kind of marketing effort. So that's really the cost of, well, the cost saving of retention. Um, and and why shouldn't we retain as many as we can when that cost price picture is put to us? Makes every kind of sense, unless you want to work really hard and have very high customer churn. Your choice. I want to very briefly touch now on the extension of customer relationships to other relationships, because the same thing applies. You have suppliers, and the suppliers might be supplying finance, they might be supplying services, they might be supplying advice, they might be supplying components or raw materials or finished goods for resale. So suppliers are not just the people who are from whom you're running your purchases for resale. They are all of those other stakeholders who enhance or don't enhance your company. And while we spend a lot of time and effort in acquiring new customers and growing our business by further income, why shouldn't we spend a large amount of time by securing the best of services for the lowest reasonable cost? Why shouldn't we be having a supplier funnel? Why shouldn't we be going back and asking our suppliers, what else can you do for me, in case they haven't heard of cross-selling, which most won't have? Why shouldn't we be going back to our advisors and auditors and financiers and and continually interrogating whether we are getting the best that we can from them or from the market that they represent. Now, I don't know of anyone who talks about a supplier funnel, but it strikes me that it wouldn't be such a silly idea to have one, where you define who all your extended suppliers are and why you're dealing with them, and then define whether they are the best people to be those suppliers to you or not. And often you won't know. So it may not be a bad idea to go out and check. Quite frequently you can get a better level of service at a lower cost, at a much higher rate of technological advancement from someone who hasn't sat on their backside and taken your money and been happy that you were happy and therefore everyone was making money and they did nothing to develop their range. Because they should be the prime supplier of information to you. And if they're not, then maybe you need to either wake them up or find someone who can do those kind of things for you. So just a thought out there. Start thinking about a supplier funnel, not just a sales funnel. And and then supplier retention and supplier cross selling, cross buying, and supplier up buying. Nothing wrong with any of those. What you want to do is to maximize your profit, minimize your chance of getting wrong goods, minimize your chance of mistakes coming into your business, make your business as efficient as it can be, and especially in the field of technology, in the field of IT, in the field of communications, and all the others. Go out and find the right people there. That, I think, is about where we should stop today, Jacques. I might have failure of electrical works any time from here now, thanks to this thing called load shedding. So I don't want to cut off in mid word, so I'd rather stop a little early and we can wrap it up.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ed. Really, really great advice on cross-selling opportunities, and I mean, even practically, uh, you going to an existing client, which is far more easier to do because you have an existing relationship, is to ask that very basic question. Look, I offer all these other things. Where you currently purchasing all of those, and building an opportunity like that. And I mean, as usual, it just triggers all these things, and I wonder to myself, well, it's so obvious. Why aren't we doing it? And then, seriously awesome is um, developing your suppliers from their perspective as well, as asking them, being proactive and saying, what are the cross selling, what are the cross selling opportunities from you to me, because there you also leveraging, from what I just understand from you, you're leveraging an existing relationship. You've kept a supplier because they maintain standards, etc. So it gives you that opportunity, and then it builds loyalty both ways. So yes, Ed, thank you very much. I
Mm.
think that was really great, and inspiring us to try these practical things, to take your advice for change.
It's just so many practical things that make it more sensible to deal with people we know than people we don't. Your
Mm,
delivery people know their address. They're not going to deliver to a wrong address.
mm,
They know your systems and procedures. So they're going to follow your systems and procedures. They won't be querying them all the time. Your
mm,
suppliers know when to deliver to you and when not to deliver to you.
mm,
You know what the sort of goods are coming in and what to watch for. None of that applies for new business, either supplier or customer. You got to go through that whole learning curve of establishing the top level relationship as well as the relationship between the operating people, the goods receiving people, and the delivery people coming in from your suppliers, and the other way around,
mm,
where they develop that relationship and they know what's happening around, and it becomes easy and everyone makes less mistakes.
mm,
That cost is huge. The cost of not having those things is huge. So yeah, just from a practical point of view, keep them, but milk them
So Ed,
or
on that
farm
note,
them.
all right. So we'll change the milk them to farm them, but maybe that's where we can innovate and say to our listeners, you've heard it, today. It's all about keeping them and then farming them.
Hmm.
It's all up to you. Be deliberate in doing so. So thank you everyone for your time and your attention, and we will speak to you next week again. And thank you, Ed. That was absolutely wonderful.
Thanks, Shark. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Cheers.